Good afternoon, Americans. This is your favorite alien on the afternoon of Sunday, October 15th, 2023, continuing with Gaza. And this afternoon's commentary is on Resolution 181. The United Nations Resolution 181 is what set up the partition of Palestine into what you call today Jordan, Israel, the Golan Heights, the West Bank, and Gaza. It was such a disastrous resolution. It was adopted, but never implemented because of the disasters who made this resolution in the first place. And the problem was the area of Palestine, including Israel, Jordan, the West Bank, Gaza, and the Golan Heights, was 2/3 Arabs, 1/3 Jewish. Okay? The partition of this mess turns out to be 66 to 67% Israel, and the rest Jordan and the West Bank, the East, the Gaza, and the Golan Heights. And the reason they did this is because, well, Jordan had some already there, and it was originally scheduled to be just on the Jordan River. But they had some Arabs that lived in what was to become the Jewish state, so they put them all in what they call the West Bank. Therefore, Jordan ended up looking like a hatchet. If you look at the maps of 1949, 1950, okay? So Jordan got stuck with the West Bank. And the Jordanians, as it turned out, did not like their fouls on the West Bank of the Jordan River, i.e., the West Bankers. Oh boy, they were a pain in the woo-woo even from the start. Now, over on the west side, there was a lot of population. So they took the 1,250 Jewish that lived in the Gaza and the 250,000 or so Arabs that lived in that part of Israel, there, the western part of Israel, and they moved them over to Gaza and moved the Jewish over to Israel. Same thing with the Golan Heights. They took whatever was in the north part of Israel. There wasn't very many Arabs over there, and they moved them over there, and they became the Golan Heights territory administered by Syria, which had just gotten their independence from France. And the Kingdom of Egypt, under King Farouk, got the administration as part of the Sinai of Gaza. And the Jordanians got the West Bank. And Jerusalem was put as a international city. Therefore, the capital of Israel would be another city, not Jerusalem. It turned out to be Tel Aviv. You see what I mean, Americans? How messy this was to begin with? Yeah. Well, as it turned out, this plan was never fully implemented by the UN, but it was by the different parties. It never was voted on the UN. It's still out there. The only thing the UN did was vote on Resolution 181, the partition plan, not the implementation of it, just the partition of it. And told the British that they had to be out of there by August of 1948. And of course, the British mandate under the League of Nations was a pain in the woo to begin with. And the British were a pain in the woo by exclaiming in 1920 or so that they were planning on making Palestine a safe haven for Jews from Europe. And you know what that did to the local population. Therefore, you had what you call Zionists coming in, extremist religious Jewish people, and extremist Arabs that came in there, and the Arab League and the Grand Mufti, who headed the Arab League at the time in the 1920s and 30s. He had other ideas like Palestine should be 100% Arab. So when the countries were established, Jordan and Egypt had control of the Gaza, and Syria got control of the Golan Heights. Well, and the other countries, the Kingdom of Egypt, said under King Farouk, said, "No way, Jose, do we take this kind of deal. We don't want this mess." The Jordanians, well, they didn't have any say either pro or con in this mess. They got stuck with the West Bank. Egypt eventually got stuck with Gaza. And the Syrians, well, they didn't like it, but they got stuck with the Golan Heights, which in a sense was more on later years. They would see it, oh yeah, we got this one. We can see up and above Israel, and we got high ground, which they did. Israel didn't like that because, you know, he had the Syrian forces staring right at them with clear shot at their stuff, okay? The Jordanians didn't like the fact that they had to deal with the Palestinians on the West Bank. Oh, boy, yeah. Yeah, so the Jordanians were in a rock and a hard place, poor guys, under the king. And the situation had changed in 1952 because Egypt had thrown out their king, Farouk, and put in Abdel Nasser, Gamal Abdel Nasser there, you know. And Mr. Nasser, he didn't like the fact that those British and French were still messing up the situation in Egypt. So he nationalized and threw him out of the Suez Canal. He also didn't like the fact that he had the Gaza Strip, which he didn't like, but he didn't like the Jews right next door on his border in Sinai. The Jordanians, on the other hand, well, they had a vicious Egypt on one side that was eyeing them, and then you had Saudi Arabia with first King Yazid and the other kings of his line that came in, and they were kind of not friendly to Jordan. And Iraq, on the other end, wasn't friendly to Jordan. Even though the Jordanians in the Iraqis shared a common king line there at the time. Okay? So they were related. The king of Iraq was related to the king of Jordan, and that was fun stuff. Yeah. And they were related because the British controlled Iraq for a lot of times. And Iraq didn't like the British because they had taken the southern part and made it into a protectorate, and then again into a separate country, Kuwait, the 19th province. So you see, this partition mess created a lot of problems, and it was never solved. After Resolution 181, the United Nations just wanted to get away from that. They should have learned from a year earlier with India, but they never did. So here we are, Americans, with this mess that never got taken care of. Erupted in civil war in 1948 until 1949, where there was a semi-quasi, okay, we'll take that, no problem. But Israel still had the Gaza, which caused problems, and the West Bankers, which were a pain in the neck. The Jordanians, well, they didn't know what to do. In 1952, King Hussein took over in Jordan, and he was more of a, okay, I'll align myself with Egypt and Iraq, and told Saudi Arabia, yeah, we're listening here. Yeah, okay. So in 1956, the British and the French had enough about getting kicked out of the Suez Canal and all the disasters that happened during their partition of the Palestine and also Lebanon and Syria becoming independent under the French. Oh boy, that caused a lot of problems. So therefore, bingo, 1956, and oh boy, there's your first Middle East war. Yo, or second, after the Civil War, because remember, the first war is called the Civil War, 1948 to 49, to make Israel a state, okay? But 1956, Israel was the bigger of the brothers, and it went over there and showed Gamal Abdel Nasser that they could take over the Sinai. And they did. And the Gaza Strip, too, by the way, which the United States under President Dwight Eisenhower told them, yo-ho, boys, out of there. Oop, both of you, all three of you out of there. So all three had to hightail it out. So 1956, a new regime took over in Israel in the mid-60s, and in 67 they went for the jugular in the 1967 war, Six-Day War as they called it, and they took over the Sinai, took over the Gaza, took over the Golan Heights from Syria. Assad was really not pleased about that, and the West Bank from Jordan, which King Hussein growled, but he probably was saying, oh, okay. But the international United Nations and all kinds of stuff forced more Palestinians into Gaza, and Palestinians that were in the West Bank didn't like it over there, so they petitioned to go into Jordan. Oh boy. So 1970 came around, and poor Jordan. King Hussein almost lost his throne over that one. And to this day, this is why Jordan hates the Palestinians, the Jordanians, because those Palestinians have caused a lot of problems all through the 1900s and now the 2020s. And, so that's a long time to cause problems, but they have. First under the empire, under the Turks, the Ottoman Empire, then the British Mandate, then the partition, then Jordan. Oh boy, had they caused a lot of problems. So King Hussein, he thought he had a respite from, the Israel have to deal with that West Bank. Yeah, it wasn't the way that was. He got more problems from that West Bank than he wanted. So you see, Americans, this is what costs today. And this is where we are today. Based on Resolution 181 that was done by the United Nations without thinking, without looking at, okay, what do we do if we do this? When you try to give a certain group their own homeland, you cause a lot of problems. And that's something you gotta know. We learned that the hard way in my federation. So we don't do that anymore. We stopped doing that a millennia ago. It cost us serious repercussions. That way of thinking went out with my ancestors. And the few that came in with us who started that, like I said, their way of thinking is not there anymore. It's there as a learning tool. See what happens? You guys don't use it that way here. So to you Americans and to you other Terrans that are looking at this, and I'm looking at this, it's going to be a wider war, probably a global war when you're in with, because this is a problem that just doesn't go away unless, one way or another, you make it go away. And the only problem that you had to make the Germans go away, you had to make the Japanese go away. The Italians are still there causing problems. But see what I mean? You never win, not 100%. You're trying to get at least 90, 85%, yay. But in this one, you won't even get that. You may get 48%, 51%, but no more than 55%. This is your favorite alien saying, "What a mess do you have here, Americans?" Good day.